Following is a short introduction to one of the most important of all Bible chapters, Daniel chapter 7. First, let's talk about the setting in which this vision from the prophet Daniel takes place. In his book, The Unseen Realm, Dr. Michael Heiser rightly notes that in the ancient world, the sea was a thing of dread. It was unpredictable and untamable. It was a place upon which humans could not live. Consequently, the sea was often used as a metaphor for chaos, destruction, and death. And that's the scene we are presented with in the beginning of the vision of Daniel, where the sea storm and its effects are described as an expression of divine wrath and punishment. As a result, throughout Jewish apocalyptic writings, darkness, evil, demonic activity was closely associated to the sea. The belief goes back to the portrait of darkness over the waters of the primeval deep in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, where the earth is described as formless and void, and darkness said to be over the surface. The New English Translation Bible notes that the Hebrew word translated darkness in the Bible usually symbolizes either judgment, Exodus 10, death, Psalm 88, oppression, Isaiah 9, the wicked, 1 Samuel 2, and in general, sin. Isaiah 45, verse 7, darkness is parallel to evil. So, for example, the defeat of the gods of Egypt happens at the Red Sea, and the final conquest of the mythical monsters like Rahab and Leviathan and the dragon will also take place in the primal sea as described by the Old Testament prophets and the New Testament prophets like John in the book of Revelation. Similarly, in the New Testament, Jesus is said to control the storm and he even walks on water, showing that he has been given the power over this, quote, evil sea. And he also has power over demons like Legion, who is ultimately destroyed in the water. So in Revelation, the sea is viewed as the realm of the devil and of demons, Revelation 12, where the abyss from which the beast, that is the Antichrist, arises, Revelation 11 and 13. As a result, this evil sea will ultimately be annihilated, destroyed in the judgment, according to Revelation 8, 20, and 21, when the power of Satan and of death itself will finally be done away with. The other setting of the book of Daniel, chapter 7, has to do with clouds. So in the Old Testament, God's presence in the tabernacle, in the temple, are signified by the appearance of clouds or smoke. Exodus 40, 1 Kings 8, 10, and 11, and 2 Chronicles 5. We also have the pillar of cloud in the desert in the book of Exodus, which indicates the Lord's presence. In Jeremiah chapter 4 and 13, we see God's chariot that he rides on the clouds. The other important setting of Daniel 7 has to do with the worship of the Son of Man and the saints by the nations. Hence, in verse 27, the nations will serve them, as some translators rendered the Aramaic there. Some appeal to the Aramaic word pelach and Aquila's Greek translation of latrevo, words that are typically used for God alone, but in the Targums, or Jewish commentaries, the Aramaic word is used for the nations in Genesis 15 and Exodus 14, as well as for individuals, Genesis 14 and Deuteronomy 28, verse 48. The LXX, or the Old Greek translation, uses latrevo for the enemies of Israel, again Deuteronomy 28, verse 48 in the LXX, and the king is even rendered latrevo in the extra biblical book known as Judith, chapter 3, verse 8. Daniel 7 also presents us to various characters, starting with the animals, also known as the beasts. Daniel 7, verse 17 says that the large beasts are 4 in number and represent 4 kings who will arise from the earth. The beasts have traditionally been known to represent the old empires of Babylon, Mede-Persian Empire, and Greece respectively. The fourth empire seems to be a future and probably Middle Eastern empire connected with an Arab nation. And that's because in Daniel 7, verse 19 to 27, as well as the following chapter 8, this last kingdom, represented by the little horn, will appear at the time of the end, according to Daniel 8, verse 17. Next, we have the Son of Man figure, Daniel 7, verse 13. I saw someone like a Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. No, Son of Man is a title used for human persons in the Old Testament. For example, in the book of Ezekiel, uses the title the most times, and it becomes Jesus' favorite self-designation, used by Jesus 80 plus times throughout the Gospels. And the word like in Daniel 7:13 simply means that this is not just any old human person, but a glorified human person. As a matter of fact, this human is godlike. In the book, The Use of the Septuagint in New Testament Research, we note the parallels between Jesus, who is the Son of Man, and the Ancient of Days, when the author notes that besides the allusion to Daniel 7:13 in Revelation 1:7, there is the reference in 1:13, and the description of his appearance depends on allusions to the Ancient of Days in Daniel 7. Revelation 1:14 is clearly dependent upon Daniel 7:9. The other main character is, of course, the Ancient of Days, that is God, Jehovah, or Yahweh. Daniel 7:13 says that the Son of Man goes up to the Ancient of Days and is presented or escorted before him. Again, the Net Bible notes the Ancient One, although the traditional expression has been retained in the present translation because it is familiar to many readers. Then they offer other alternative translations like one who had been living forever and the eternal God. And lastly, we have the holy ones, or the saints of the Most High God, according to Daniel 7, verse 18, who will receive the kingdom and will possess it forever. Now, the reason we know these are the people of God, that is Christians, and not angels, is because God did not subject to angels the world to come, as the writer to the Hebrews chapter 2, verse 5 notes. The importance of Daniel chapter 7 also lies in the fact that we find the most quoted and alluded to Old Testament verse by the New Testament writers, Daniel 7:13, where we see the Son of Man coming on or with the clouds of heaven, used more than 40 times, and a close second is Daniel 7:14, quoted or alluded to more than 20 times by the New Testament writers. Lastly, the moral of the vision of Daniel is well summed up in the book Signs and Wonders. Sovereignty has passed from the beast-like forces arrayed against God to the man-like champion of God's cause. Moreover, the transient order of past regimes will give way to the eternal order of the future. This rule of God, through his people, will be established when the nations do obeisance to the people who stand, not in their own right, but in his.